Hello, it's my pleasure to be invited here to speak to you today to share a little bit about what's happening in the geospatial world around data and technology in this time of change. So how did we get started? Well, some of you may know my organization and some of you may not. I'm responsible for working with all of Canada's federal departments and agencies to voluntarily publish open geospatial data and share that on our open government website through a simple discovery portal called Open Maps. So in that way, all federal open data is available online through a single window. We've been at this for about 6 years now, and I'd just like to say that currently 100% of us are working from home, as is most of the Canadian public service. So I'd like to put a little shout out, some kudos to our IMIT professionals across the country, both private and public, for making this happen. Our expected outcomes driving the work of the Federal Geospatial Platform right from the beginning were fairly big. We wanted to ensure that data is key to decision making. And if we bring data to our decision makers, we expected that they will make more informed decisions and perhaps better decisions. We expected that by bringing data to the public, that we would foster innovation, drive economic benefits, and certainly from a federal perspective, increase our productivity. But we also expected to improve the efficiency, not only around lowering the effort required to find and access and use data, but also by building one infrastructure available to all organizations. So essentially an enterprise approach to geospatial data and technology. We launched over 4 years ago, and we collaborated closely with our open government colleagues at Treasury Board to launch our public discovery presence called Open Maps just over a year later. So let's talk for a minute about how open geospatial data has realized some really important outcomes. The obvious outcome is open government. We see ourselves as the geospatial spokespeople of liberating data and information, increasing transparency and enabling citizens to have full access to what is essentially paid for by them. We've been able to literally shift the culture of many departments, helping them adopt standards, develop data workflows, increase open government culture, enable data science, and what is special about geospatial data, we enable it to be visualized. The value proposition that we bring has been widely recognized, and the Government of Canada's data strategy brought to the surface the need to keep going, to keep driving value from this approach and from the platform, and continue to make it an enterprise asset for the federal government. And along the way, we've helped decision makers maximize the value of having many organizations' data available in a single location, able to be viewed seamlessly to support analytics around things like cumulative effects, understanding the impact of development on our landscape, seeing where our electrical vehicle charging stations are and the gaps across the country to inform clean energy programs, and of course, understanding the situation around floods and fires and pandemics. And to a lesser extent, we know that the private sector is heavily reliant on open data, deriving new products and creating new markets as this asset spurs innovation. But we're changing. In the coming year or so, we will be launching a new and exciting version of our portal, one that is public-facing, federated to include provincial and territorial open data assets, and maybe someday municipal and academic. We're fully embracing the many tools that the cloud has to offer. We're getting better and better at sharing and opening our Earth observation data and products. We're looking for new ways to partner with both the private and the public sectors. We're increasing our commitment to share our knowledge and experience with others and to build better, stronger capacity across our stakeholder communities. And we're continuing, of course, to drive our open government objectives. And in this way, we're keeping pace with open government and with the growing citizen desire for data and information ready at their fingertips. And and we're improving our agility around emergency management. In Canada, emergency management and the safety of our citizens is a shared jurisdiction. We have a web of laws, of frameworks and strategies that help us prevent, mitigate, respond, and recover from all kinds of hazards, natural, human-induced, and even technological. Geospatial technology and data inform all aspects of disaster management. For example, mitigation by modeling hazards and modeling vulnerabilities to develop strategies. From a preparedness perspective, formulating emergency response and evacuation plans. From a response perspective, executing on those plans, and recovery, assessing damages, rebuilding, preventing recurrence, and educating the public. Geospatial information and technology is at the core of all of these. But maps in emergency situations are not new. We've known the importance of maps in pandemics for a long time. I draw your attention to this map, which is over 170 years old, cartographically enhanced for better visualization, mind you. And it shows the location of a single well as the cause of a cholera outbreak. It is this map that determined the cholera transmission and prevented future outbreaks. And this sets the stage a little bit for what I wanted to talk about with you today. There are literally hundreds of dashboards out there, hundreds of numbers and statistics and predictions being published on the web, in the media about COVID-19. Many are public and private organizations scraping the internet for as much information and data as they can get their hands on and putting up statistics that they think Canadians want to know or should know. But what if this data isn't complete? What if some assumptions have been made around data gaps causing misleading statistics? What if we're misleading Canadians and our population? How does Canada, through its Chief Health Officer, accurately represent the epidemiology and stand behind it? At this point, I'd like to invite my colleague, Chris Melnick-McDonald, Enterprise Architect for the platform, to share his very recent experience in helping our government understand the COVID-19 situation. Chris?
Thank you, Janice, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is staying happy and healthy in these troubling times. COVID-19 is a once-in-a-generation event that will be remembered for both its social and economic impact for years to come. One day, the world woke up to a complete shutdown, one that has never been experienced in living memory. And the world has changed drastically from the ways we work and live to the way we go to the grocery store or see our friends. But when it comes to emergencies, it is important to know that we have to be prepared at all times. And moving forward, we must take into consideration what we have learned during this pandemic and apply it to all future emergencies. Knowing where to help is critical to any emergency response, may it be wildfires, flooding, or pandemics. We need to know what the geospatial context is and how it may affect the citizens of Canada. On March 13th, the Federal Geospatial Platform's assistance was requested by the Public Health Agency of Canada, Statistics Canada, and Natural Resources Canada Emergency Geomatics Services. They required a way to share authoritative geospatial information to be combined with epidemiology information from Public Health and vital statistics information from Statistics Canada. They needed to work from the same source data, as these are quite large data sets and hard to move around. But they needed to produce reports, services, and products for both public dissemination and internal decision-making very rapidly. So we came up with a solution that was a multi-departmental, geospatially enabled cloud environment with all the enterprise tools that we have been investing in over the last few years. And we're able to showcase to these different departments the use of the cloud for geospatial information. So what we created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic was a multi-departmental, multi-jurisdictional, geospatially enabled cloud. And its main purpose was for collaboration and dissemination of these products that you might have seen through Canada.ca, through reports and daily briefings by the Chief Medical Officer, and even tweeted about by the Prime Minister's office. We created this cloud on AWS because over the last few years, we've been working with both private and public sector partners of ours to create an enterprise tool for the Government of Canada to combine all the open geospatial information into one location. The main key to this geospatial enabled cloud was the data lake that we created for multiple different types of users. We had a FSX drive, which if you're familiar with AWS, is like a network attached storage that was able to network all of the workstations together. So individuals from different departments working on cloud workstations were able to use the same source information and publish back to a shared location. We have S3, which is Amazon's simple storage service, and was used for the input and output of data through different scripts, harvesting techniques, and raw data in large formats. We also used WorkDocs, which was a way to share reports, documents, and presentations between members of the task team to be able to quickly break down departmental barriers and get the information into the right hands quickly. We provided enterprise-level mapping infrastructure, including open source and commercial software. We've been working with our private sector partners, including S3 Canada, and our open source partners throughout the community to create enterprise-level versions of their software to produce map services, covering things like long-term care home facilities, location of vulnerable populations, and current outbreak statistics. We are able to produce this infrastructure very quickly because we have invested many times, invested over the years to be able to be used many times with different users. At the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the public sector employees were sent home with simple laptops that did not have the full suite of tools that they require to do their job. We discovered that we could provide geo-enabled high-performance workstations that were connected together through a geospatial data store. What this allowed was public service members from different departments to work together with the tools they were used to with members that they had just met. We could make this investment only where and when it's needed because these machines only operate when the users were operating. These were very powerful machines. So what that would allow was sometimes analysis would take 1 to 2 weeks to complete. It was down to mere hours based on the compute power that these machines provided to the end user. We had EC2 instances running web scraping and data harvesting scripts and exporting them to S3. And we also had workspaces, graphics enabled processor heavy workstations that were allowing the subject matter experts to crunch the numbers and do the work that they needed to produce the data for dissemination to the public and to internal decision makers. All this was created in 72 hours. With the help of Shared Services Canada, Treasury Board Secretariat, and our partners, we were able to create this multi-departmental cloud environment with all the required technology within the 72-hour time frame. This was made possible because of years of experience and investment in enterprise and building for whole government approaches. We believe truly that investing once and using many times is the future of IT in the government of Canada. And we know that our technology used in a multi-departmental approach will fuel decision-making, produce maps and services that are required for both private and public sector decision-making, economics, and future emergencies. And we believe that bringing the users to the data is a much more efficient way to understand emergencies, to understand our economy, and understand our technology. Janice will now explain the results of our work on this multi-departmental cloud. So back over to you, Janice.
Thank you, Chris. As you'll see from this slide, you're probably familiar with some of the products you see on it from our public health agency's website. They were created and viewed millions of times already. Our Chief Health Officer, Dr. Teresa Tam, has shown these, and you may have seen them behind her in some of her media releases. Epidemiologists now have partners in the geospatial community with whom they can rely in this type of situation. And the private sector, of course, has been there along with us doing what they do best. And Canadians have something official from the federal government upon which they can have confidence, epidemiological awareness. And while sometimes the government takes forever to build and adopt technology, And this is an important point. It is thanks to the very slow and methodical work that we've been doing through an enterprise, whole of government approach to managing and sharing geospatial data called the Federal Geospatial Platform that we were able to undertake this initiative to replicate a solution in less than 72 hours. It's our partnerships, our relationships with other organizations with geospatial interests, both public and private, our focus on building once and leveraging many times, and our culture of serving the public rather than ourselves that we could do this. But transformation is really only possible when we clear the obstacles. And let me tell you what I mean by that. As a public servant, I am bound by a web of rules, of policies to assure transparency and accountability to my citizens. But sometimes these can slow the pace of innovation. When digital transformation is pushing us through initiatives like our IMIT strategic planning at the federal level, our digital policies and our cloud-first strategies, we're being pushed to think within this matrix of rules, to innovate and to deliver in new ways and to digitize our workplaces. And sometimes there's disruption. Difficult moments in history provide opportunities for innovation to flourish. And this is where we are right now, whether we're comfortable with disruption or not. This pandemic will result in an acceleration of some technologies, and many of you have seen this already, and an acceleration of government's adoption of them. And I would dare say, the breaking down of some more self-imposed barriers to digital transformation. But the road is not always easily paved for us. So back in 2017, a committee of ADMs with interests in geomatics, called the Federal Committee on Geomatics and Earth Observation, endorsed the Federal Geospatial Platform to adopt a cloud-first approach. The intent here was to do this on behalf of other departments, many of which were facing outdated technology and data centers, and rather than invest in their own, they invested in the FGP, hoping to realize efficiencies in the future. But this road has been slower than expected. Departments have all independently adopted cloud environments in the meantime. But these environments are not shared between departments. They are not organized to enable the vision of this committee of ADMs to allow departments to share their infrastructure. The vision of efficiency, of horizontal collaboration in a shared environment has not fully been realized. So how do we pave the way for better outcomes? Well, we know that geospatial information, maps, excellence in cartography and cartographic representation, data sharing, technology solutions, these are all essential to managing emergencies. And for COVID, this has been no different. But we also know that this type of collaboration and coming together, the coming together of responders is highly dependent upon technology, upon infrastructure, upon shared tools. We need to pave the way for this. We need to remove those barriers and find ways to think less along individual department lines and more along public service lines where we're there to serve our citizens. We need to build capacity and literacy. We need to transfer our knowledge to each other and to the public. And we need to set ourselves up to be mobilized at a moment's notice. And we need to do this now, before the next emergency. And this is how governments should be leveraging geospatial data, its expertise, and the infrastructure that supports it. So we have a number of recommendations. The challenges you'll see on this slide are based on the success we've seen over the past several months. We can do this. Consider this our proof of concept, but we can't do this alone, of course. We need all of our stakeholders to commit to effective data sharing and standards adoption across jurisdiction. We need to have at the ready the data from multiple sources, organizations, governments, academia, and science organizations, the data that's needed in case there's an emergency that erupts, not because it already has. And that data must be standardized, or precious time will be wasted manipulating and cleaning massive amounts of data in a short amount of time. And all of this should be done on a cloud infrastructure at the ready, scaled when it's needed, dormant when it's not, therefore saving millions in capital investment. And as a community of geospatial experts, we need to make our community bigger. We need to continue to geo-enable those organizations involved in emergency response so that we can be mobilized at a moment's notice. This will help us be ready next time, and there will be a next time. So our challenge as we go forward is to move from being really good at collecting information to observe what has happened and being ready to say what could happen and maybe even change some of the outcomes for the better. Thank you for your time.